Hello, class. It's Miss Roberts here, and today we're going to review the public communication chapter. Let's begin. So, in this chapter, we're going to discuss different types of public speaking and the distinctive features of those different types and purposes, give an overview of planning and presenting a public speech, and guidelines. In another video, I showed you the requirements for our informative speech, so make sure to look out for that. If you have any questions, please let me know. So the purpose of this video is to review the slideshow associated with this chapter and associated with this project. Now, overall, public speaking is a wider conversation. So one of the things that helps me as an instructor, or if I'm speaking in front of an audience, I feel like I'm having a conversation with my audience. And here are some of the distinctive parts or distinctive characteristics of public speaking. Now, because you're speaking in front of a larger audience, you have to adapt to their perspectives, maintain a good climate, make sure that you're engaging, make sure that you're crafting your speech to what the audience needs. Give effective verbal and nonverbal communication. That means scanning around the room if you are in a room or looking at the camera if you're doing online communication, using verbal and nonverbal communication to convey attention, command of your topic, and engagement with the audience. You also have to organize your thoughts and support your claims. So, for example, in the informative speech, you're going to be citing your sources and using an outline to help you do so. You're going to present your ideas in an engaging and convincing manner, making sure that you're using the proper tone, moderate speaking voice, but make sure you're not too monotone. You can also use visual aids in order to engage an audience as well. And, if applicable, listen and respond to questions. So there are several purposes of public speaking. Knowing the purpose of your speech will allow you to organize your speech in a proper way and help you prepare for your presentation. There are purposes to entertain. Think of your comedy hour or an MC of a talent show. But, excuse me, but purposes to entertain, you're going to engage, interest, and amuse the listeners. In our project, you're going to inform, so you're going to increase knowledge and understanding about a topic, and then persuade. That's when you want to change people's actions and attitudes and beliefs in addition to giving information. But when you're speaking in front of a large audience, you also want to be mindful of credibility and how you can gain it and how you can lose it. So, for example, the listeners believe and are engaged with the speaker and trust what the speaker says. So even as an instructor, you entrust me with giving you information that you're going to learn for a class and that I do my due diligence to make sure that the information is clear and understandable. Sometimes you can gain the credibility through, initially or before you speak. So with initial credibility, they might have a title such as doctor or teacher or the headline speaker, where they have that built-in credibility and trust automatically. Then you can derive the credibility from your speech. So if you don't have that trust right off the bat with a clear and organized speech, you can gain that trust throughout, or that credibility can be gained at the end with terminal credibility. That's when the the listeners may be more engaged in your speech once it's done and once all the pieces are put together, or maybe even after the fact, and they gain interest in what you say. But also, you want to make sure to explain competence, whether this speech is based on your experiences, outside resources, or both. You want to make sure to convey to the audience that you are a trustworthy speaker. Establish common ground by asking questions, making sure you're being audience centered in your speech development, and making sure you're engaging the audience. But you want to make sure to speak clearly with conviction. So make sure you're speaking loudly, in a moderate pace, and engaging with your audience. You also want to incorporate evidence when applicable. Evidence can include statistics, examples, comparisons, and quotations. Visual aids can also add that visual evidence and examples to bring to life what you're talking about. When you're using these, you also want to make sure to cite your sources, both verbally and in your writing materials. So to do so, you can say, according to such and such says, such and such states, and incorporate information such as the author and the title of the work. So when you plan your public speeches, because with extemporaneous speaking styles, which is what we're going to demonstrate in this assignment, you want to do the proper steps. So for example, you need to define what the purpose is. In the first slide, we talked about to entertain, to inform, or persuade. Once you've picked that particular purpose, select your topic based on that purpose, develop a thesis or central idea based on that purpose, and organize your speech. So you want to say what the main idea of your entire speech is and organize it. Research your supporting material to weave into the outline and your verbal citations. Develop the introduction and conclusion. So you'll incorporate your attention getter, credibility statement, or fair hearing statement in your central idea. And pretty much your conclusion is your recap of the thesis and your final thought or idea. You can also develop your visual aids, decide what they are, and if they are electric based, make sure that they work on the day that you speak. And then finally, practice delivery. Practice how you will stand or sit. Practice your eye contact. So, for example, with video delivery, you have to make sure to keep eye contact with the camera. However, with in-person delivery, I have to scan the class, making sure that I'm maintaining eye contact with all of my audience. So why are we so insistent on organizing your speeches? In my experience teaching public speaking courses, one of the main concerns of students is sounding professional, making sure my ideas are clear, making sure that I am organized and make sure I'm not rambling. So in order for us to organize ideas, we use outlining to help us make sure, okay, we have our intro, body, and conclusion. We are formatting based on our purpose, such as informative organization, just like the one in the assignment, or persuasive organizational patterns are a little bit different, and we are able to have the blueprint of what we're going to talk about and go from there before we even deliver or practice delivering the speech. So in organizing our speeches, it affects the comprehension of our ideas. The listeners are better persuaded by organized speech, and it adds that credibility that we just talked about. So making sure that you follow your own outline is key and paramount. So the introduction starts off with the attention getter. You can compare it to a hook in your English writing class. It's the first thing that you say. It can be a fact, stat, quote, hypothetical example, or hypothetical question. It motivates the audience to listen, and the thesis lists the main points, and it increases the speaker's credibility. Then you can figure out how you're going to organize the body of the speech. The introduction introduces the ideas. The conclusion wraps up the ideas so that the speech body is the meat and potatoes of your information. You can base your body sections on time, beginning, middle, end. This is great for narrative speeches or speeches that discuss historical events. You can talk about direction. So, for example, say if you want to talk about a certain place and you want to discuss place number one, place number two, place number three, that can also be an example of spatial speech organization. The one that we're doing for our project is most aligned with topical. So think about having one topic and splitting it up into three smaller sections. So, for example, if I want to talk about my favorite TV show, I will introduce this TV show I'm going to talk about. I can have the first body paragraph talk about the main themes of the TV show, some of the main characters and plots in the second paragraph, and third, the impact on pop culture. So I took one topic, a TV show, and I split it up into three sections. You can also talk about wave patterns, being recurring themes within your body sections, compare and contrast one phenomenon to another. You can also talk about a problem and solution, especially in a more persuasive speech, and cause and effect. Persuasive speeches can also discuss the cause and effects of problems before we persuade our audience to take a certain course of action. Then you're going to conclude the speech. Pretty much, you're going to summarize your main idea. You can emphasize ideas, but you're not introducing any more ideas. You're pretty much wrapping up and recapping what you talked about. This increases your credibility, especially that terminal credibility, that terminal credibility that we just talked about, and we can gain support and approval at the very end because you're able to conceptualize your ideas in its totality. In between, so definitely for your body sections, but it can be used throughout your speech. You also want to have transitions because an audience does not have the outline in front of them. You want to make sure to add transition words in order to connect certain ideas together and let us know which part of the speech you're in. So, for example, transitions signal the listeners that you're ready to move from one section or idea to another. Some examples of transition words are therefore, and so, for this reason, as evidence suggests, in conclusion, to begin, however, furthermore, the list goes on. Next, we're going to describe delivery. Now, there's several types of delivery style. For example, the oral style is the visual, vocal, and verbal aspects of the delivery. So we want to make sure that we speak in a moderate speech rate, meaning not too fast, not too slow, making sure that we are lively and not monotone, and making sure that we have our visual aids, make sure that we're engaging with the audience to do the following. Now, in impromptu delivery, we have there's little preparation, but you do your best to answer the questions as best as you can and as organized delivery as you can. However, with manuscript delivery, you're speaking from a written text, but one of the challenges of a manuscript delivery is making sure that you don't sound monotone because you're reading. One of the reasons why I allow for note cards instead of full sheets of paper, because I don't want students just directly reading off the text and reading into it. It changes your delivery style. It might have changed mine temporarily, but it blocks you from the audience. So you want to make sure if you're using this delivery style in another context, make sure you're not sounding monotone or sounding like you're reading. You can also use memorized delivery where you delivers speech from memory, but the challenge, of course, is to not forget what you're going to talk about. And finally, we have extemporaneous delivery. This is prepared in advance. This is the delivery style we're going to use for this project, where you have your notes, have your outline, and you're able to deliver the speech with using those. So overall, most of us will communicate publicly for a presentation, for a class, for our jobs. So learning these skills can help you in the future. You must plan and practice and figure out what the purpose and goal for your presentation is. Think about the goals of your public speaking and go from there. Make sure to plan, research, organize, support, and then finally deliver your speech. And we reviewed the guidelines. So if you want more information about the affirmative speech project, I'll have that video linked in the assignments section and on the announcements page. Of course, let me know if you have any more questions. Thank you so much and enjoy your evening. Bye.